right, good evening, everyone. I'm gonna call the school board to order at 7:02. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Yep, Kristen Savage.
Present.
Jack Sapia.
Attending.
John Woodworth.
Is he here? Is that his phone or is that your?
No, that's my phone.
Alright.
I've not seen him.
Okay, he's excused.
Katie Newton.
I'm here.
Yep, Shauna Manthorn.
Here.
Kim McCormick.
Here.
Paul Kane.
Here.
Ray Woodward.
Here.
And Paul. Oh, I already said Paul Kane.
Here again.
Alright, if everyone can stand for the
Mark,
pledge of
you're
allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have meeting minutes from our previous meeting in your packet, and we also have some non-public meeting minutes. We'll do them afterwards.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of December 7th.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Shauna. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstained. One abstention. Alright, we have some non-public meeting minutes that we are passing around.
I make a motion to approve the non-public meeting minutes from December 7th, 2023.
I have a motion by Shauna. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mark. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstained? 7-0. Please pass those back. While they're doing that, student, staff, and family share, do we have?
John, do you want to introduce Mark or Katie at all, or do you want me to introduce Mark and Katie and then come on up and tell us about the good work they're doing there with staff and kids and also the community eventually?
Good evening, everybody. Tonight we're going to have our two health teachers are going to present for you guys. Jane Murphy and Mark Pasquini. They're going to discuss a couple of things, some of the programs that they're doing and some of the neat things that we have. I don't want to go into it already, so let Katie kind of do the show, but that we have going on at the school, some unique opportunities for students within our community that not a lot of schools have, and we're looking to expand those opportunities for the students with a number of ways to get growth in, socially, but also in building teams and leadership. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
Katie, Mark, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
So as John said, my name is Katie Murphy and I am a health and physical education teacher at the high school. And Mark is also a health and physical education teacher. And we are going to share about the ropes course that we have on the high school, middle school campus. So the slideshow has a lot of pictures, so I want to give an overview of it, but then also kind of give you a chance to see visually some of the things that we've been doing. So it is a ropes course that's located behind the school, and it is between the varsity soccer field and the football practice field. And it was installed in the trees of the woods, which is really cool. Like, it's totally in its natural element. It was obtained through a grant about 4 years ago, and the last 2 years we've been working with the company to train all of our staff. So we did like a 2-phase for over the course of 2 years to train all of our staff at the middle school and the high school so that it can be used in both places and for a variety of opportunities with those staff members. So there's 4 low elements, and low elements mean that those elements are like a foot to 2 feet, maybe 3 feet off the ground, but fairly low to the ground, so that in most cases you could step off those elements. You're not on belay in those elements. And then we have 6 high elements, so those elements involve kids climbing about 30 feet into the or above ground, and then they're on belay. So it was installed by a company called Wingspeed. And here's another one of the elements that Mark and I completed during the staff training. So it was a pretty cool experience for us as staff to kind of build some skills together, work together. Mark and I have been working together for 15 years, so there was a lot that we were able to do without using communication skills, like a lot of nonverbal, but then it also showed how much you really do need the efforts of your teammates and people around you that you're working with, your classmates, to problem solve how to the challenges of the course and work together. And through the staff training, we learned a lot of things that we can teach the kids leading up to getting on the high elements. So we would not put kids up on those high elements on the first day. There's 7 stages of adventure education, and those stages involved building communication skills, building trust with each other, so that when you are working towards some of those harder challenges, you have faith in your classmates and teammates. So you can see some pictures of us at our staff training, checking rope, learning belaying skills, different ways that you could go about teaching those skills in a class setting with students to teach them those technical skills. This is a video clip of one of our staff members doing one of our low elements, which is running the gauntlet. It's like 10 seconds long, but basically the challenge is to run through the tire swings as they swing without getting hit by them.
Most people do not do it all at once. Most people kind of, if you remember the video game Frogger, you kind of go. You can add another element where they're blindfolded and they have a partner who has to say go. So it's, I thought it was pretty fun for being a relatively easy piece for them to access.
And this involves us, you can hear it at the beginning, us kind of going through a contract of commands verbally with the people that are holding the tires to make sure that we all release those tires at the same time. So there's a level of, again, trust and safety and communication involved in making sure that this goes off the way that it's supposed to. So we do have more ahead, so I'll just keep moving, but these are some pictures of us doing some knot tying, which is super important in our safety checks, making sure that our staff members are trained in checking basically from head to toe that we are prepared to go up on the elements with helmets, harnesses, and then our knots and carabiners and whatnot. So this is a picture of Mark and I doing the Wild Woozy. It's a partner challenge. So you climb up the tree, and then your partner climbs up after you, and then you basically walk out in a V, and it gets wider and wider and wider, and you have to push against each other and support each other as you go across. It's very challenging. This one is very physically challenging. I will say both of us were pretty sore, I think, after.
And if anybody wants to see a video later, we have one of Mr. Fantasia up there. That's
Yes, we do.
It was
It's
not pretty.
it's worth its time to watch.
It for sure is.
on the website.
Yeah.
Some of our other staff members, Coach Fitz and Mr. Horgan, this was their training the first year on the picture on the left. On the right, you can see Mr. Fantasia belaying Mr. Pasquini. So we all learned all of these skills for setting up the course, setting up the ropes, and then how we would go about putting this together for students. This is a picture of us walking across basically what you would say a power pole 30 feet off the ground that's mounted between 2 trees. That was anxiety inducing for sure. And that's actually, just to kind of branch off that's one of the big parts and benefits of this whole initiative is that it allows students to be challenged and uncomfortable outside their comfort zone, but in a safe environment, in a place where we've built communication, and we talk about how that transfers into the real world and how, getting through and overcoming some of those challenges mentally and emotionally can really help lead you into what is that like in the real world and how can you push through and persist through hard things even in life when those things get bigger and harder.
And one of the sayings is choose your challenge, but you must challenge yourself. Basically, like we would never force somebody to get up on one of the high elements, but they need to do something that day that is going to challenge themselves. Maybe that's belaying somebody that day that they're nervous about doing. So that's kind of also one of the big pieces is that you're allowing them to push themselves versus us making them push themselves.
So here are some of our benefits. We've touched on a few, but obviously building confidence and self-esteem is huge for every student, no matter what age they are. And that's the great thing about this is this really spans almost every age group that we have in our district, including adults. It really helps them build relationships. We talked about team building, communication, those cooperative skills, working together. You know, there's also a lot of processing that goes on before and after these challenges. So we talk afterwards about what went well, what didn't, what would they do differently, or, you know, how again does this transfer into the real world? And, you know, when we interact with other people or coworkers or classmates, you know, what are the similarities? And so
some of the lower elements are more problem solving, like how are you going to figure out how to do this? And it's interesting watching people try to work through those, how it's gonna work. And then what's kind of fun is, all right, let's go and try it and see what happens. All right, what didn't work well? All right, let's try that this time and let them kind of see how that works.
the other really big element is the outdoor experience. So there is a lot of benefit to having our kids get outside. There's the physical activity component. This is one of the low elements where you can see there are some people on the ground spotting and then some kids that are off the ground and they're working together and involving themselves how it fits best. So some of our benefits in our school and community, this really helps to build climate and culture. This promoting, you know, empathy and inclusion and grit and perseverance. I mean, I've seen students cry while they're out there because they are struggling, and I've seen other kids go up and hug them and support them and be super kind. And it's awesome. We had a group of upperclassmen showcasing that and freshman students watching that happen. And so just to see that amongst our students is awesome. Number 2 up there, alternative course pathways. We're talking about potentially creating a new adventure education course for this summer. Mark and I are working on the curriculum for that right now. So they're having the opportunity just to learn how to tie in, how to rock climb. You know, a lot of these skills transfer to outdoor settings. And then the leadership development, I think that's pretty clear through what we've talked about, but Life of an Owl is using this as a part of their like phase 2 training. And then athletics, you know, it has the potential for teams to go out there before a sports season or in the off season or during the summertime. We used to send kids to an off-campus location to do this type of thing, and we paid for it. Our freshmen did that, so there's opportunity for that to happen again, maybe for incoming middle school or incoming freshman students, or, you know, there's endless possibilities, I guess is my point there. But this is just another group of kids. I mean, you can see just how much they're working together and helping each other, which is really, I think, just inspiring and encouraging. So I'll end with this. The connection to nature, we are seeing a lot of increase in mental health issues. The connection to nature, we know science shows that it increases happiness and joy, and the benefits on just reducing stress and decreasing depression and anxiety, I think is really encouraging. So we're looking forward to the opportunities in the future, and appreciate any of your support in those future endeavors with training and opportunities for staff to get out there and all of that. So if there's any questions, let us know.
Yes, thank you. Jack, go ahead.
Would you offer this to the school board as a team building exercise? I couldn't think of a better thing for this school board to do
We don't
than
have ropes that could handle.
I'll belay you, Jack.
Oh,
I'll tie the knot.
Actually, we have been asked by outside organizations already in the community to see if it's possible for them to use the course, and so that is being talked about as possible. Also connection to community members and groups that could see that being beneficial to them. So
I do have this is great and I think it's awesome. But I do have a question as far as the equipment that you use. How often is the life safety rope, where is it stored properly? Are your carabiners and your pulleys and everything, or do they have a maintenance log along with the ropes as well? And then what's their end of life? If you have a problem with something, is there a policy in place on how that equipment gets checked?
Yeah. We
Period.
have a standard operating procedure and we have a logbook for recording our ropes and the usage. We have recommendations by Wingspeed, the company that installed it, for the length of time that all of our equipment is good for, and then when we need to start replacing that. And our plan is to replace it slowly over time so that we're not incurring the cost of buying everything that comes due at the same time. They do come out and do a yearly inspection every year. And so he was out inspecting when we were on the course.
And they inspect everything, the ropes, not just the course, but the ropes, the carabiners, and all of that stuff. All of that is stored in a shed that's locked out in that area, and that equipment is used just for the ropes course and nothing else.
Is it kept dry where the elements can't get into it or anything like that?
Yes, exactly.
They're in bins.
Yep, in a shed and then in bins as well, so that, there wouldn't be any
And last question, if your belay line gets shock loaded, like someone falls and it shocks the system, is there a policy and procedure in place as far as if that rope gets taken out of cycle until it's inspected?
There is a procedure, and I can't remember his name. The gentleman that trained us did talk about that. And there is a procedure in place to check the rope to make sure that it is still usable. I believe that is a dynamic rope and not a static rope, so it's meant for that.
Yeah, it's meant to take that type of shock and weight.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Not after that,
Three?
no.
I was just wondering if it can be used in the winter.
It can be, yep. If it can be used in the winter. Yeah, we talked to him when he was doing the inspection and he said that it can be used year round. It's just a matter of if that's something that students and participants are comfortable with, and we wouldn't want them to not enjoy it because they're miserable being cold. We were out there in October and already students were just underdressed, and by 90 minutes, by the time you're out there for a block period at the high school, I mean, if you're not actively moving and you're just on the ground belaying or something, you do need to dress warm, and we don't want students to hate it. So, yeah, good question.
Any other questions? All right, thank you guys so much for presenting that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any delegates and individuals?
No.
Can I get a motion to move the 30-minute time to the end of the meeting?
So moved.
Can I get a second? Moved by Kim, seconded by Kim. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstained. Okay. Student representative.
Hello, great to be back. One more day and then holiday break begins. Super excited. I have a little bit of a smaller report today as we roll into break, but I'll just begin. So all of the district elementary schools put together Spirit Weeks for their students this week. Sandown Central is wishing their staff, students a relaxing, enjoyable holiday break. Adventure Lore visited Sandown North for a third grade in-house field trip last Friday. The focus was on teamwork, which was taught through team games and activities. It was a positive experience for Sandown's grade 3 students and staff. Sandown North is looking forward to their upcoming holiday sing-along tomorrow at their all-school meeting. At Danville, a holiday movie night will be held for their students December 22nd from 6 to 8 to close out the week. A shout out goes to Danville Student Council. They were actually the ones that put together their Spirit Week, so that was awesome. And then with Atkinson Academy Spirit Week, one of the days included Wacky Wednesday. The theme was to dress up in as many holiday themes as possible. For Pollard, backed by popular demand, the Pollard PTA sponsored Prismatic Magic Assembly for all students on Monday. This assembly was a tradition at Pollard for many years, and everyone was really excited to have it back. The students learned how lasers work and enjoyed a choreographed laser show with festive music. Last Friday, Pollard's second graders had a lot of fun performing the 12 Days of Pollard Christmas class sing-off. Stay tuned for the video that's going to be released soon. Pollard thanks their PTA, Sunshine Committee, and 5th grade parent committee for all that they've been doing to support their community this year. 8th graders at the middle school saw A Christmas Carol, the musical at the North Shore musical theater on Wednesday. 8th graders also hosted a Christmas Carol tea and invited the parents in for tea, English biscuits, and scones. The 2024 TRMS Spelling Bee champion is Henry Philbrook. In second place, we have Finn Coveney, and in third place, Reese Stewart. Congratulations to all that were a part of this competition. The middle school's Student Senate participants and music students spent the day at the Vic Geary Center with the area seniors. They brought them cookies, played games, and played music for them. At the Timberlane High School, tomorrow is the annual Millie's Meals holiday send-off. There will be an adjusted schedule. The block schedule will be 1, 2, 4, and then 3. Any planned dismissals must be completed in pickup patrol before 10:30. There will be choices for students to choose from. This includes a student versus staff basketball game, a milkman show, and an event in the cafeteria that includes music, movies, board games, and fun. On January 21st, midterm exams will be taking place at the high school. Best of luck to all students who are beginning their preparations. Following midterms on the 22nd, semester 2 will begin at the high school. And lastly, the class of 2026 held a hot chocolate bar fundraiser yesterday during blocks 1, 2, and 4. So thank you.
Thank you. Have you done the rope course?
I have, yeah.
Have you?
It was great. I did like it, yeah.
What was your favorite part?
Favorite part? I enjoyed the teamwork aspect.
Oh.
Yes, it's very great.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to current business, if the board is all right with it, I know that the first thing on the agenda is for the classical music department student trip, but if you're okay with it, I would like to move up the phase 2 of the lease as well as the CIP recommendations to the next two things with we do if we're all right with that.
Okay, can we do A first, the jazz and music department request, because I think that's a very quick thing and
Yeah.
it doesn't have to
Yep,
stay
absolutely.
beyond that and then do the other two.
Yep, sounds good, go ahead. We'll do the jazz and classical music department.
Thank you. So just for policy IJOA, I'm just requesting permission for our students who were selected after their audition process to participate Jazz All-State in February, Classical All-State in April. It's a standard trip that New Hampshire Music Educators Association has put on for years. Very excited. This year we had a lot of students audition, actually over a quarter of the music department auditioned for Classical All-State, and we had 28 students accepted to that festival. That's the highest from a single school asked to participate. We had 30 audition for Jazz All-State, which is huge too, because that's a smaller festival. And we had 9 students selected, again, the highest selected from a single school to participate. So really proud of the kids.
That's awesome, congratulations.
Looking forward to them hopefully being able to participate.
So there's 2 separate executive summaries, so we'll need to, can we just do one motion to accept, to give authorization to both, or do they need 2 separate ones?
You could do one motion for both.
Make a motion to approve the 2024 jazz student trip and the 2024 classical student trip.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Shauna, seconded by Kristen, any other discussion?
Keep up the good work, it's awesome.
Yes,
That's awesome.
and congratulations to the musicians.
Fortunate to have hardworking kids.
Very much so. Seeing there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Opposed and abstain. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you too, thank you.
All right. Phase 2 of the 25 million lease.
Good evening, everyone. The construction committee met on last week, and they made a decision to move some things around on the $25 million lease proposal. And in front of you is what is being recommended for this year.
So this year is the high school window replacement, the high school roof phase 1, roof area D, high school ERVS bacon, dehumidification and duct cleaning, Timberlane High School controls and valve replacements. The construction committee members, some of them are here. I didn't know if you guys wanted to come up and speak to any of this as well.
I'll sit up.
Thank you, Carl.
Thanks, Carl.
Again, Brad. Long time no see. Good evening.
It's great to be back.
On that side?
It's been a while. Well, as Kyle just mentioned, there's been a lot of meetings with this construction committee, and I think a lot of people, myself included, but I can't clearly take credit for this, but we were concerned. You have a total of about $25 million that the voters gave the district last year. And we wanted to get our best bang for the buck. Anybody who's been around Timberlane High School in the last 30 years knows there's something wrong when you have a bunch of windows at Timberlane High School that are single pane windows. So we as a committee, as I mentioned, just that was kind of a priority to get replacement windows up in this next phase. Because granted, it's all comes under the jurisdiction of this board. Whatever, we just make recommendations, and whatever the pleasure of this board is, you guys make those decisions. It's not that I think that other stuff, there's a lot of stuff that's necessary. There's a lot of well over $100 million of improvements that were identified over a year ago, and it wasn't all inclusive. But we were concerned as a committee that the windows just might not make it, so we pushed it up, and that's what our recommendation was at that last meeting. And the other thing I guess it's come across is that we seem to have by accident conflicting committees, if you will. You have a construction committee, and you also have, which historically the district's always had, a CIP committee. People overall have the same goal, but these are recommendations that all will come to this board. So we talked as a construction committee, not trying to usurp or undermine the CIP committee, but I think the board has to recognize that you have X amount of dollars, and on an annual basis, try to get the most for your money for that. And my theory when I sat over there was overall fix what's broken first, and you're not gonna run out of things to do. That I can assure you. So we went through a bunch of these things, and again, well, even tonight, Kim and I just saw something that, but again, that's up to this board. So
Can I just jump in here?
please do, Dr. Farmer. This is just like the good old days.
So, this is significantly different than what you looked at the last time. I'm sure you've all reviewed this. What questions do you have regarding the differences between this time and last time?
I'm pleased to see the windows on there. All the other figures do not end in all zeros. The estimate of $2 million, so I know that this was brought up before and there was a great deal of discussion. And the response as far as the cost went was rather nebulous. I'm guessing you did not come up with this $2 million figure. Is this a placeholder?
This is a placeholder on the windows. There are actually 3 different types of windows that we're looking at here in the high school. There's the oldest windows, which are the single panes. There are the courtyard windows, which are actually quite a difficult job to replace. You don't just pop those windows out and replace them. They're kind of embedded into the wall. It's going to be quite a project. And then you've got windows that were put in the 2000s, which really need some caulking and maintenance, which, from my understanding, probably still needs to be done. So this is a holding place. We don't know how much each of those phases is going to cost. It could cost less than that, it could cost more. We were in the process of trying to come up with a more definite number in January, which was when our next meeting was. But after seeing what was being pushed forward in phase 2 and what was being pushed into the CIP, we met about a week ago and really reorganized both of these documents. I don't know if you're aware of it, but we actually took out a boiler in Sandown. Are you aware? Do you have a question as to why we did that?
I've had enough conversations with other members
Okay.
involved that my understanding is clear.
All right, so that was a removal of about $300,000 out of this.
Could
We
you
also
explain?
removed, there was 250,
Could you,
The
would you mind
the
explaining it
conversion.
to
Yeah, those are
the
not on the
removal
inside.
of the boiler, why would that was
That was
taken
a
out?
conversion of an oil boiler to propane. that is not something that really is a critical item that needs to be done, or at least in the committee's mind. It's much more critical to get these windows replaced and to replace other HVAC systems. The payback on it is a long time. It would be a nice thing to do, but we moved it out of there. There was $250,000 in there, and I'm not sure who sits on the CIP, for some sort of renovation to the locker room in the middle school, but no one could tell us what that really meant. So that got pulled out. Until you've got a plan, I don't see putting money in there for something like that, right, Jack? So those are the sorts of things that got moved and pushed out. You'll see that the Atkinson Belfry was on the phase 2, but it's now in the CIP. So we try to make priority projects, as we've done all along, for deferred maintenance and repairs, starting with the building envelopes first, the roofs, the HVAC, and now the windows. So that's what this reflects. The other thing, and I suggested this early on when this got passed after I was off the board, is that the CIP needs to be scrubbed against what the construction committee is doing. Some of the things on that CIP, I'm sorry, were just people's wish list. Those people have come and gone. We don't even know why they're on there. I'm not even sure why they got moved. So I would recommend that in January, February, before the CIP reconvenes in May with new projects, that somebody or some committee, I would think the construction committee, vets that CIP to move these two together. So you've got a realistic plan moving forward using the $25 million lease, which you can only spend $9 million a year on. That's statutory. We can't spend $15 million next year. That's why you're seeing phases to this. I wasn't aware of that until a little while ago. And figure out really how we're gonna pair these two together to get the most bang for our buck. So that's kind of where we're at.
Speaking only for myself, as a member of the CIP, I think that makes a lot of sense. Strategically working together rather than working independently, trying to, find a goalpost.
Well, I agree to one extent, but I don't agree with bringing, it was suggested that we bring the two committees together. I'm sorry, I disagree with that. You're gonna have about 20 people on a committee, and you know how hard it is to get anything done with 9 people on a committee. So I would suggest maybe having this construction committee who's been looking at this overall for years, take a look at the CIP and then present a plan, say in May, to the CIP committee. Because the CIP committee is relatively disparate and meets infrequently. So that would be my suggestion.
I would agree with that.
Hold on, let Jack and then.
Sorry.
Yeah, so as to the windows and other things we were talking about in the envelope, these are the things that are critical not only to the building and the structure, but critical to the learning environment of the students. That's why these things get moved forward. And although there may be differences of opinion, until we get good, solid, reliable data, you really don't know that. And I think that $2 million, just to address that $2 million number, 2.5 million, that wasn't based on good, strong, reliable data. As far as the CIP goes, I think very early on when this board first met, I had made the recommendation that we consolidate 2 or 3 of these committees into a very smaller, because I agree with Kim, 20 people on any committee, you get nowhere, too many chefs in the kitchen, it's kind of what we have now. But I would also, but I think that ship has sailed. I think that there's still a misunderstanding as to what there is nothing that should be on this $25 million lease that falls in the CIP. The CIP is merely, and I was with John and Sue Sherman when they put this together back when we resurrected this from we weren't doing it. A lot of things were getting lost. So this was kind of a filing cabinet for the budget committee and for the school board as a list of recommendations. Ultimately, it is the board, whatever board is sitting here, that makes those final decisions. But it kind of came up with a budget number. The CIP, there are a lot of things on there that are long-term down the road that have, but things that there should not be a crossover, in my humble opinion. And there should be someone, probably me or you, Mark, that both sit on that committee to make sure that that doesn't happen again. But the CIP is administrators submit proposals or submit a want or a need, and there's a very big difference between a want and a need. And it kind of gets filed and they kind of organize it a little bit for the budget committee, but that should not take place of what the work of the construction committee is doing or have anything to do with the $25 million lease. I see those as two completely separate entities.
I
Kristen.
disagree with you.
Yeah.
Kristen.
Well, I know, Mark, did you have something, cause you were,
Oh, yeah. Mark.
I don't wanna
No.
take your thunder if you.
No worries.
So, Mark and Jack are both on CIP.
Yep.
Also on construction.
Jack is,
Jack
Oh,
Jack and Paula are on
Jack and
construction.
Paul are on.
Paul just is only.
Paul
been
just,
meeting
right,
now,
only
so-
one meeting. You're both on construction.
Right.
We were both on the board when we did the whole EEI thing, so you have, for the public out there wondering, we asked for you to be involved and stay involved because you had a lot of the background knowledge that not everyone would have. So I'm looking at this and I'm hearing exactly what you're saying. You know what's on that EEI list, you know what's there. There were certain things when this was brought forward as a warrant article last year that were put out there as, these are ideas to start this and get this going. That list was extensive, as Brian said, over $100 million. So we tried to give an idea of the things that would happen. It didn't necessarily have to be exclusive to that, but that was the idea, to try to do certain things. And then it passed. Now we're having this, as you said, we have this one group here and another group here, and it's kind of clashing, so we have to figure out the way to bring it together. I agree with Kim's assertion that looking at the list of projects that was extensive, 100 million, to go through that and say, these are the things that seem to make the most sense for the efficiency of the school, the bang for the buck, and what we can do, and what's going to make sense in that sense, and then to present that. But then also to say, but here are these other projects that still need to be done, that the CIP should be looking at to put in there. Is that kind of where you're going, like, you
Yes,
create your
because
list and
remember,
then.
there's $100 million worth of projects.
Exactly,
that
and we only have.
The CIP committee was really aware of when the CIP was first generated years ago.
Correct, and
Because we
like you,
didn't have that.
like you said, there's been other administrators, other
Right.
facilities people that have said, we need this, this, and this, or a department may have wanted something that's now a defunct,
Yeah.
doesn't even,
That's what's
so
happened.
that needs to kind of be purged and start fresh, but if you create the list like you're saying, of looking at the lease and working with EI and the construction committee, which has that more finite knowledge, and then to say, okay, this is what should be focused on the lease. This is kind of, I don't wanna say the leftover, but these are the other projects that can't get addressed. Now bring these to the CIP and start focusing on where they fit in your schedule and your plan going forward. Along with any other things that might not be on that list, it could be other things that we're not aware of or you're not aware of from administrators. Does that sound like a feasible plan that we can move forward with, and is that?
That makes a lot of sense to me. I'll tell you, I've been there are two sides to this coin, but the beneficial side is Jack and I talk an awful lot, and I've had the benefit of his insight and a lot of the work that your committee has done, which, to be quite candid, was more extensive. And the working knowledge that this group has, your group has, is more extensive than that at CIP, so I think that would be beneficial, absolutely.
So Jack is the only person that overlaps both, or who else?
Carl.
Jack and Carl.
Doesn't Maria also sit on that?
But see, I see,
And Maria, Jack, Carl, and Maria.
I kind of see with the CIP, that money coming out of the capital line, those expenditures coming out of the capital line, whereas I see the lease being a whole different
It is.
list of
Well, it is.
things.
So
That's,
there's two
yeah.
different
Hold on,
animals.
Carl.
Can I say something?
Yeah, Carl, go ahead.
So, when I got here, we had CIP, we didn't have construction committee, we didn't have a lease, we didn't have anything.
Right.
What I tried to do is find a way to fund getting more than $1 million worth of projects done each year. That's what we had at the time in the CIP, and we brought EEI on. They did an assessment, they took some of the things on the CIP list, some of the things they're doing were on the CIP list. It was a way to address more than $1 million worth of projects that needed to be done. Some were on that CIP, some were things that they found. I mean, the LED lighting project, that was an absolute separate project that was already underway that we rolled into the lease, cause we upgraded the systems and the product that we're gonna be using to save more money, so that was why that was added on. Some of the HVAC issues that were on CIP are being addressed. Some of the roofing issues are being addressed. Other things are still on the CIP and still need to be addressed. I think they're interchangeable. I think it's one, they're all capital improvements that need to be done. And the lease was just a way to address them in a quicker mode than $1 million a year. That's what the CIP, that's where they come together, is because we're addressing items on the CIP list through the construction, through the lease.
Well, and I think that makes sense in the first year because we didn't know if we were going to have this lease passed, so we did have things that now we're at a point where the lease is passed. So now we need to separate, and we need to make a lease project list, and we need to make the leftover, and then put that in the CIP.
I almost don't consider it a leftover,
Me
because you
neither,
can
it's
only
just
spend
mine.
9 million a year on the lease.
Right.
And let's say you have $1 million to $1.5 million on the CIP. Those should be thought of as one big bucket of money by
Right, so
somebody, and
what's your
that's
10,
what
10.5 million of projects for this phase and that phase,
Right.
100%.
And what you put in the lease is EEI managed, and what you put in the capital is really not.
Exactly.
So,
But I like your idea of what you're saying is to go through, vet out your list, and then present that to CIP to say, this is what we're thinking, and this is what we'd like to see in the next phase. What makes sense for you, and then go down that.
right, now that we've gotten over the initial hard part on the lease, we're in 2 years, I mean, and then we have 3 years left, we are now starting, initially, we had to go through everything and figure this out like from scratch, but now we've got 2 years of projects and we kind of know, we have some sense of a priority of projects for the next 3 years, so I would think that we could inform both the lease and the CIP for the next 3 years with like 10 million apiece over the course of the winter as the construction committee meets to bring back to you guys, so you have a better sense of what's gonna happen in the next couple of years. I think that's fair to say. I think we're getting a much better handle of how much money we have to spend and what else.
A clarifying question, and I'm embarrassed, I don't know the answer to it. You had stated the lease money managed by EEI. Are we contractually obligated? Because doesn't that tie us, for example, right now, and I don't know where it stands specifically, but there was talk about EEI, say with the fire suppression systems. I'm not certain that falls directly within their area of expertise, and it might tie our hands to looking at, other folks that specialize in that rather than Energy Efficiency Incorporated. So are we tied in with the lease money to have EEI oversee all the lease money projects? I don't have the answer to that. I think that's a key answer for some of these projects, be they windows or whatever else.
Well, that's a good question, Mark, because I asked that question to Jack about a month ago, that the actual execution of the EEI contract happened when the new board got sworn in, so I honestly don't know.
That's why I'm saying
I honestly
embarrassingly,
don't know what your deal is, and I've heard there's year deals, and I don't know what the contractual document is and what your legal obligation is with the EEI. They're doing a great job, but I don't really know.
Could we look into that for the next meeting, just to give us some sort of clarity?
Well, I personally, if it were me, I'd ask for an action to explain what the obligation is to EEI on the lease. Is there a
That's what I did just less formally.
Well, you suggested it, but you really need an action because there's a substantial amount of money, not that I'm saying that it may not be warranted, that's going out. And it is getting rather fuzzy as to what projects they're doing and which projects are really CIP sorts of projects. And that question really should be answered, and the board should know that answer.
I agree.
Didn't we,
We
did have a discussion on that, we did have council get involved in that, and the way it was presented at, I believe, the public hearing was they can do a specific work that is energy related. That's why we couldn't, I think we looked into doing a project with them and we were told we couldn't. I can't remember which project it was, but I think you remember.
No, well, there was the Sandown School issue, but that was because it was not related to energy efficiency.
Well, that's what I was trying to
But
articulate.
that's, yeah, but
If
that
it is
wasn't
not-
the issue with EEI, that was the issue with the spendable money. That's two different things.
I think there should be a difference between advisory type of role, and then a board's prioritization of some things that, come to us, whether it's through the CIP, through the construction committee, or through the recommendation of Carl, and his association, especially with EEI. So, I think, we talked about having some that it gets muddied because you have so many different entities, involved in the process. The board, I think, needs to be in a position to make final decisions on some of these things.
I agree, but the board should understand how EEI is getting paid.
And not, definitely,
Okay, because we're in January and they started in May or June.
We will support getting that information before we move forward on some other pieces, because we don't wanna cripple Carl with not being able to move forward on anything. We don't wanna go against an agreement that we've already created.
So I'll make a motion to review or have the EI contract reviewed and presented to us for next week, or the next meeting.
Do I have a motion, to have a second?
Second.
Second by Shauna. Any other discussion on this one?
Invoices too?
Say that again?
Invoices too?
Contract and
Contract and
invoices.
invoices?
Yeah.
We can, yeah.
Yes,
So amend your motion to contract and invoices.
contract and invoices. Thank you. Friendly amendment.
I still second the amendment.
Any other discussion on this motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained. Okay, does anybody have any other questions
Yeah,
for
I
Kim
would-
and Brian on?
Well, I just want to acknowledge that Brian and Kim put in, and they're not on the board, they're volunteering to do this stuff. They've done a lot of work, and I just want to say thank you to the both of them for what they're doing for the district. We had a good, I thought we had a good, productive meeting, the last construction meeting, we had a lot of things out on the table, and we're able to articulate them in complete candor. So I think we're heading down the right road. The idea that we're doing the windows and kids may not have to put jackets on one shoulder up against those exterior walls, and we're not gonna be bleeding energy out the windows, I think is a great move in the right direction. One of the other things we talked about at the last meeting was the shell, the envelope of the building in some of those places that are failing. So that's probably another change we'll be talking about during the construction meetings, just to let you guys know. So something else that I think is critical, and that's how we're organizing things.
Kristen?
So just to make sure that the communication is staying consistent between the construction committee and CIP. Because we have the three, Carl, Maria, and Jack, right? Is there something that, I'm assuming you're keeping minutes or something, is there something beyond that? Like some sort of memo that should be going to the CIP specifically, or something directly to make sure that they're getting, and vice versa?
I think.
I mean, just to keep
the CIP only meets essentially from May through August, September. So I like your point is that there needs to be some, but I
I
think
just wanna make sure the message is uniform and that everyone's hearing the same thing. So perhaps maybe at your meetings, at the end of it, summarize, these are the things that need to get to the,
Executive summary.
yeah, basically. So just make sure that that's carrying over so that we're not having the,
Well, actually,
The
whatever
cross.
goes in, whatever we're talking about, the way I see this, is whatever we're talking about for the current phase 2, and any phase moving forward, should be, Carl and I can just share that with the CIP committee and make sure that doesn't get doubled down.
as I said, the best move, I think, would be for the construction committee to take a look at the CIP when we're meeting in January and February to try to make sense of how to reorganize that. That CIP went boom because of this lease. Things got pulled from years 3, years 4. And so it needs a complete reorg. And I think the way to do what you wanna do, Kristen, is to have that looked at, vetted through by the construction committee, and maybe have the construction committee, or at least a couple of us, go to the first CIP meeting and say, listen, this is what's happened. We needed to reorg this, and this is what the CIP we think should look like now, and then turn it over to them with some basis of
understanding and knowledge,
reality.
right?
Yeah.
Because again, two different animals, but they all
They
They all
join
blend,
together.
so you're right.
So I think that would be my suggestion, just because the CIP is
Yeah.
done and by May, you have a whole new board, which means half your CIP members are different
Yeah,
potentially.
exactly.
I see the value.
That's why I'm saying something in writing too, because then it's some sort of historical for if anything changes.
I agree.
What we touched on in our strategic plan meeting, if I may, Justin,
Sure.
was in a lot of different committees, we have shared drives. So to have a kind of a, you know, a drive where the CIP, construction, Carl, and the board can see what everyone's looking at the same thing all at once. And, you know, things that you all are doing and the things the CIP are looking at and the way things are moving. It's just something we touched on, but I think that would be something that everyone could look at a shared drive and everyone could see everything the construction committee sees and everything that the CIP sees and the moves that everyone and what Carl sees and the information so that we all have it in the same place at the same time. So and the minutes and agendas for the meetings, I think that would be helpful to know what you guys are up against, you know? So that's just something that I think Justin and Carl are gonna work on. So we all have the same information.
Does anybody have any other questions about the phase 2 of the lease?
And the CIP, because we're kind of doing them together,
And the
right?
CIP?
Well, I guess the only question I would have relative to the CIP is the district-wide CMU repairs. I thought we designated this specifically to Danville.
You did.
Okay,
That's the cost for Danville.
okay, so that can just be changed to Danville instead of district-wide, not a big deal. And then Carl, again, and I apologize, can you explain the controls? I understand the valves, right? You got a bad valve, you got a bad valve. The controls in the high school were $797,000. Can explain to us how the controls work and what the value is for that?
So the controls in the high school are for better, they're just a hodgepodge of different types of controls running our equipment. Some are 120 volt controllers running valves for heating systems, and I don't have any view of that on my building automation system. We're upgrading it so it's all on the same system, running the same valves, running the same controllers so that I can see it on my building automation. I don't even see anything at Pollard, so we'll be getting to that at some point too. But we're upgrading the controls for the entire district so that we can better control our systems, see what's going on, control it, run time schedules on it better, activate it when people are in the buildings, turn it off when people are not.
And I don't have it sitting in front of me, but typically we do the annual payback, if you don't have that, okay. Again, my whole thing is with the finite amount of resources that we have, making sure that we put them all in the right places, and we've run an unautomated system all this time. I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't.
Partially automated, I guess would be.
Partially automated, okay.
It's not
This
like-
isn't my,
I can show you on my computer,
Okay.
show you everything that I have, and
No,
you'd
this-
be amazed at what we can and cannot do. I'm sure I think Mr. Woodworth mentioned it at the construction committee meeting that some of the valves in the high school haven't worked for years.
yeah, this isn't my bailiwick, and that's why I get to ask, and it's a large sum of money, and that's why.
It's well worth it.
I would think the
It's-
efficiency gained would be just like with windows, you're trying
comfort.
to not lose, you know, by not heating something until you're getting reports of kids who are in 45-degree rooms.
So these HVAC systems in the high school, there's one HVAC unit and it controls maybe 5 or 6 classrooms. There's one thermostat that controls that air handler. So it takes the temperature of the one classroom that it's in, and unfortunately in the 400 wing, where the windows are the worst, the thermostat's in the family consumer science classroom where they're cooking, while the sewing lady in the next classroom's freezing because the thermostat's being told not to do it. Now, she does have her own thermostat that runs the hot water radiator against the window, but it's not enough to keep up with that.
Okay.
cold and the air that's being blown in cold because it's calling for cold air.
That kind of money, I have
I
to ask
just
the
wanna,
question.
we're gonna, we need better control of all the HVAC systems that we're putting in and especially now that we're putting new HVAC in, it should be definitely done at this time.
How much of this is the controls and how much is the valve replacement?
It's, I don't know, it's all in one because they run the control wiring to the valves and they just replace the valves as well.
So when we're looking, I'm sorry, so when we're looking at something like that, is there a way to break that down when we're looking to? I mean, I know, I don't wanna be too like.
You can, but it's an all, you try to do it all at once, you don't wanna separate it, so
No,
if you wanna
just to see it.
I can ask, yes, sure.
That would be helpful to me.
I think the rationale with the valve replacement at the same time is the age of the valves. And that's, you start to have problems with these valves not opening and closing all the way. And that's much easier to replace a valve when your heating system's down than it is to drain things when the system's up. So that was the rationale I understood at the committee.
Or
Which makes
maybe
sense to me.
We have that different drive or that kind of information could be readily available.
Yeah, I think the main takeaway here is that both committees need to be speaking to each other and keeping each other informed better. So whatever we need to do to fix that, whether it's a shared drive, whether it's better kept of minutes, if it's one person on the committee that goes back and forth, it's whatever. But does anybody have any other questions about the phase 2 of the lease and what they proposed or the CIP at this time? I'm gonna let Justin actually speak about the CIP because something's come up at BugCom.
Yeah, and in terms of sequence, at the construction committee, some of these things were revamped. Since that time, the budget committee has also met and passed motions about potentially taking $500 of reductions from the CIP, $500,000 from the CIP line. So in terms of tonight, I think the board can do one of two things. They can have some conversations and make some decisions about what they want to prune from this list that totals $500,000. Or we would be happy to kind of spend some time and leave this meeting, go back and maybe bring some recommendations regarding that list and those reductions to the January meeting for you to consider.
So I would make just a comment on that. You said $100,000? $500,000.
First I said I think 500.
Yes,
I like that.
Yeah, I like that number. 70, 100.
We're just gonna keep falling further behind.
It's just kicking that can down the road. I mean, I could come up with 100,000 fairly easily.
It's 500,000, Jeff.
No, I understand that. I
Well,
said, I could come up and say, okay, I
I
can get
come
rid of
up with
100,000, whatever.
500,000 easily. I'd move the HVAC or Atkinson now.
Didn't we just do this?
Kim, why? I mean, you're
Way getting
more
windows
familiar with this project, so why?
Well, it's
It's 500, it's easy because it's the number,
It's
but
easy,
why?
well, one, because it's easy, and two, as far as I'm aware, there's nothing like absolutely critical in Atkinson that
We have a couple units that are
they're limping along.
they're limping along.
They're limping along, but we have many units in this
We have a
district
lot of them,
limping
yeah.
along, so they're
Several
no
bollards on,
no
yes.
gimpier than our other units, so
Engineering terms.
that's engineering terms, gimpy units.
Are you defining relativity? Is that what you're doing? Relativity, I think is what you're defining.
I mean, that's what, and remember, the CIP, once your budget is voted, the CIP can go
Right.
in March,
It's a number.
and you guys
Right.
can
It's a number.
say,
No question.
but what you should be presenting to the voters as capital projects are what you're planning. But that doesn't mean that come March, Carl says, holy cow, we're in real serious problems with Atkinson. That's the time you wanna go back and say, let's reorganize this and think about how we're actually gonna spend the money that got voted in.
So what I would
So-
what I would recommend on that, what I would recommend to this board is that we vote to approve phase 2 of the lease as well as the CIP list. Because both of these have been kicked around quite a bit and been asked to go back and forth to committees to redefine these lists. So, and like what Kim stated, the CIP list is something that we come back through, we can reorganize it. So what I would do is at least just go ahead and approve both of these and so we can move on and we don't fall far.
So moved.
Hold on, Bree.
I thought we just said we had to lower it because the
No.
budget.
proposal.
Okay.
Budget committee might reduce the number, and if they do, then we can always revisit it down the road.
And like what Kim stated is that it's just a recommendation, so if it's not held any finite thing of you have to do this.
Understood.
Yeah, so
So Jack
So
made a
moved.
motion to approve the phase 2 of the lease as well as the CIP recommendations. Do I have a second? Second by Paul. Is there any other discussion?
No, we should just say the ones that are dated December 21st.
So you wanna amend for the CIP or for the?
For both.
For both.
Yeah.
For both. To approve the phase 2 and the CIP recommendations both dated December 21st.
Yep. Okay. Any other discussion? Alright, all those in favor? Opposed? And abstained.
Yes. While we're, Kim and I sitting here, if the board would allow us to do this. This evening, I believe on your agenda, you were gonna be looking at the default budget. I have not looked in detail. I saw some numbers in your default that concern me. The default budget is a statutory type budget. Your salary lines, your contractual arrangements, and the default and the proposed have to be identical. So anyone who works for Timberlane has an agreement. If you're a contract labor for Timberlane, you have an agreement. That has to be in both budgets.
So Brian's bringing this up because in the last budget committee meeting, those that attended, the budget committee has pulled approximately $2 million out of the proposed budget. That hasn't been pulled out of the default budget. The default budget needs to be adjusted in accordance with the proposed budget. If you're saying you don't have a contractual obligation for transportation in the proposed budget, like they cut the transportation lines, then you can't justify it in your default budget. They pulled $1 million out of tuition private and special ed. That number in the default budget is $1 million higher than the proposed budget right now, and that contractually could not be. How could you have a contractual obligation in the default budget but not in the proposed? Kristen, you see what I'm saying?
No, I see what you're saying.
You guys
Yes.
have like a $2 million discrepancy
Right.
in your default budget with the now proposed budget that you haven't considered since that just happened last week, so.
And I don't believe the budget committee actually voted to do anything yet, have they?
No, the next meeting to, their goal to finalize something is the 28th, but.
That's one thing, but the other thing, which is painfully obvious to me, is one-time expenditures. I saw a list of one-time expenditures of $90,000. No way. You have a tennis court that was almost $500,000, and you have half of a track. Those came out of Timberlane funds last year. Those are one-time expenditures. Normally, we wouldn't be dealing with this, but about 3 or 4 years ago, Kim and I had the pleasure of being up in Rockingham Superior Court. And and actually, yeah, it was quite the default morning there, and of course,
So we do wanna
you don't
bring
wanna
this to
do
your
that. You
attention,
don't wanna go through the excitement of that.
that there's a big discrepancy. If the budget committee votes that default budget, the proposed budget as it heard the other day, you need to make some substantial changes in your default budget. Just be forewarned. And Katie was asking, and Brian remembers, you can change the default up to the time the ballot's printed. So I don't know as I would even address the default tonight, cause
That's what we talked about before.
Do your homework, because again, it's up to the printing of the ballot.
No, we can't take any action on either.
To ask a question, so you bring special ed up specifically, so I'm wondering where our default would be if we filled those positions for our school system, but then we are tripling the cost having outserviced them. So the proposed budget maybe is higher, or the default budget is higher because that's the mandatory what we're paying now. Does that have any relation to the numbers you're seeing?
Or whatever Bray's, if you have a contract, whether you're tripling, if you already have a contract with that group, that's gotta be in the default budget. You have to increase the default budget, you have a contract, you have to honor your contracts.
So the issue is that you've got, and it wasn't so much salaries that were pulled, it was like tuition private, it was almost $1 million was pulled out of the proposed budget, right, Mark?
Yes. 1.1.
I'm not seeing that pulled out of the default budget, so your salary lines in both those budgets should be matching, cause
I was just
yeah, that's, and you'll see that, and then, transportation too, that's kind of a weird thing, cause how can you have a contractual obligation but pull it out of your proposed budget?
same in both.
And then I saw that the budget committee is removing positions, I'm not sure what positions they're removing, but the budget committee can't remove positions,
Only you
only
guys
the school board
Yeah.
can.
It was a
They were
recommendation.
removing
Positions that were proposed in this budget cycle. So nothing that had been established.
They were proposed by the board, the board voted those
Correct.
positions in,
Correct.
and the budget committee's removing them?
That is their suggestion. So
Okay,
the
that's
budget
their
committee can-
suggestion, they
they can't
can't
do that.
remove them,
That's what I said.
okay,
Right.
so, but they're using that to form the basis of their proposed budget.
Right, so they can't cut my understanding, a particular position, but they can make a recommendation to defund it by half. So instead of filling two, the way it was, the money set aside, my understanding is to fill two positions. They felt that that was potentially redundant, and there was a chance to save money, and having the second person may be redundant. So they voted to essentially cut those monies by half. And where the school board decides to go with that, they can go with that, but that was their recommendation.
Yeah, but they can't recommend to.
That was their thought process.
That's great.
It's a thought process.
But they haven't taken any
They've not taken any
final,
action.
That's correct.
that was their discussion.
Yeah, once this board says, we wanna hire 6 more people, and this is that's what it is.
That's what it is,
You
yeah.
can't sit back on the next following Thursday night and say, can you guys get them half price? That's, this board spends the money. This board authorizes the
That's
slots.
understood. That's
This
understood.
board removes slots, and by the way, unless you formally remove a slot, it stays in the budget. You know, that was for years, that's what we did years ago. Many moons ago, there was several positions that they were vacant for the longest time. They just couldn't fill them. So that's how we eliminated, I don't know, a dozen positions that had been vacant for 10 years. So when we eliminated a position, no one got laid off, the positions, there was no one even here, and you couldn't find the people.
Yeah.
Some people, how'd you do that? Well, it's not that hard, because no one was here.
So,
Understood.
again, and I don't know how you're gonna do this now, well, you still have time. The budget committee, if that's their thought, that the proposed budget is too high, they should be coming to you and saying, we recommend that you consider removing two of those positions, and then the board should vote it, and then it should go back, so. It's just-
That essentially is what they were doing. They were recommending eliminating one of the positions, but they could not say, we don't want two, we think that's too much. So instead, they did the end run and said, we're going to half fund it, and
But again, they've not voted on anything yet,
Okay,
and
so-
they're going to the 28th.
They're gonna have to, they really, if they're gonna do that, they should be coming formally in writing to you guys to say, we are requesting that you cut two positions, you can't half fund a position, we can't say to the superintendent, hey, we're gonna half fund you for next year, is that good with it? It's just, you can't do it.
That work for you, Justin?
No, the answer is no.
This is what you guys get the big bucks for, you're now in the budget season.
Anyway,
luck.
have
Thank
fun,
you both.
thanks for
Thank you
having
very
us,
much.
we'll be back, I'm
Thanks,
sure.
guys.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
Thank you.
Okay. So next on the list is the TRHS Program of Studies second read. Mark?
Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm well, how are you?
I'm good.
So I apologize that I did not send the updates to the program of studies at the last meeting. You had asked me to fix your name, add a date onto the addendum. I did those in the, what was gonna go to print, but I neglected to send those along because I didn't wanna get them all printed out again, cause I forgot that you all have them electronically now and not printed versions, so I apologize for that, but yes, those changes have been made in the version that's gonna go to print.
No. So does anybody have any questions? Program, again, this is a second read,
quite a read.
quite a read, quite a bit.
Well, sorry, while I have you here,
Go ahead,
what was the exact number of archives classes?
differing between CCP and accelerated, are you counting those as two different or are they
Two
the same? Two different?
Cause they're run differently, or is it, okay, yeah.
Those would be running, well, actually, those could be running as contract courses, so I'll count them as one class because they can be running as contract.
Okay.
8 classes. Those are archived.
Anybody else have any other questions for Mark? Okay. Could we get a motion to approve the program of studies?
Move to
Seconded.
program studies.
I made the motion, Bree seconded it. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstained. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you staying also for the ELA curriculum? Or is
I,
it someone else?
the ELO curriculum?
Oh, wait, no.
ELA
curriculum
edit?
Yeah.
I am staying for that.
Okay. Have a seat. Are you doing
Keep
math
your
as
seat.
well?
I am doing
Just keep on going then.
Alright, so what you have in front of you is an executive summary. We'll start with the ELA, 8th grade ELA. There is a slight change to what we call the essential question. One thing I do wanna just point out is that when we talk about essential questions in our UBD documents, really what that means is it's sort of a question to get kids thinking. We sometimes call it the ungoogleable question. It's really a question to spark interest with students and to get them really thinking about the topic. It doesn't mean it's like the be all end all, it's the most important thing that needs to be learned in that unit. So like we use the term essential, but it's a slightly different definition than maybe something in your house that's essential or in your car that's essential. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanna make sure that we're
Yeah.
clear when we start talking about essential questions. So in 8th grade, language arts, the justice unit, what you have in front of you is the current essential questions, and there's 2 of them. And what the teachers are asking to do is revise it to just why is justice important? And making that the essential question.
So it was, currently it's why are civic duties necessary and then why should justice be blind?
Correct.
And it's getting changed to just the one of why is justice important?
Correct, and they feel like it's a little bit more broad, it's a little bit more ungoogleable, if you will, and able to spark more conversation with students and really get them to think about it and think deeper, and not be sort of locked into sort of that civic duty piece and the injustice piece, and just kind of thinking more broadly about it.
So nothing's lost, it's just a matter of, it's more all encompassing in one statement.
Exactly.
Well, this is when we had a reasonable discussion on this one, correct?
Correct, yeah,
And
and
this is not the original question, so
It's the one that made it though.
so this is much better. Yeah, I like
yeah,
these.
because from curriculum and assessment, there was discussion was brought from the first read of curriculum assessment, brought back to the teachers, further discussion with those teachers, and you know, this is what then came back to curriculum assessment to then come to you all.
Yeah, this one's better. That's all, I like this one.
Yeah, the other one has hyperbole, that's pretty confusing.
Yeah, there's also.
Why is justice blind?
Well, it was why is social justice important? That was the essential question, that was just a slippery slope.
Yeah.
You know,
Could be,
it didn't align to, in my opinion, it certainly might be, but not for this, but yeah, this is
That's great.
Indoor voice.
We like this one.
So.
this one's good.
I'll
So
make a
Mark,
motion.
hold on one second,
I'm
can I
sorry.
ask a question? So this is for us, for our first read.
Correct.
Could we do a first and? Is this literally the only change?
For the 8th grade language arts unit in justice, this is the only curriculum change.
So if you wanna.
Make it for the first and second read?
Yes, please. I think so.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the ELA curriculum edit for first and second read.
Motion to have a
I'll
second?
second that.
Seconded by Jack. Any other discussion?
Just for the justice.
The ELA curriculum edit, yes.
Yeah, I mean, the teachers have done, I mean, we've talked about this for months now.
After what I just heard, it makes sense to do both.
We're not. And 2 curriculum assessment meetings.
Correct,
That's why I was gonna make that, after what you just said, it sounds like this is not, it's been.
This is it.
Right.
Seems, okay.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any other discussion or questions about this? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstained. Alright,
That's a problem.
Thank you.
Next.
Save your night.
Sorry, I was just like, what's the point? Bringing it back again.
So the next document you have should be in an 8th grade math unit on statistics and probability. And so just for context, our math units K-12 follow strands, if you will, which are aligned with the state and national standards for math. And so one of the strands is a statistics and probability strand. So you can kind of see the progression of those skills and the knowledge learned K all the way through high school. And again, you're following this strand, like so geometry is a strand.
Yeah.
If that's making sense. So statistics and probability is a strand as like the name of the strand that goes. I was giving you context because in 8th grade math, there is a current competency that states students will demonstrate the ability to apply the principles of experimental probability to determine the likelihood of a given outcome, make inferences, and justify or critique conclusions. That same competency actually appears in 7th grade in that same strand of statistics and probability. What the 8th grade teachers are looking to do is remove that competency because they actually feel it was put there in error in a copying and pasting clerical error, because they don't focus on probability in 8th grade, they focus more on the statistics. And so there's no standards linked to probability in 8th grade curriculum.
Because it's in 7th grade.
Because it's in 7th grade. And so they're looking to just simply remove that competency. You know, in curriculum and assessment, we had the discussion about, you know, is it gonna be confusing to remove a competency with the wording probability in it in a unit called probability and statistics? So I wanted to just clarify that that strand of probability and statistics is there, and it's all the way through all the grades. So it's really just about at each grade, like what specific competency is being addressed.
Makes sense. Brief.
So I'm just wondering if the unit itself should more so be entitled Statistics of Statistics and Probability.
And so again, that was the conversation that we had in CNA. And because the statistics and probability is the strand title, that we felt as though keeping that strand title
Not bringing
consistent through all the grades that have statistics and probability as a strand. So a lot of the units are labeled, the unit title is labeled that strand title. So we felt as though leaving in that strand is the proper approach. So we talked, that exact same question came up in CNA, as we talked for a while about it actually, and we all felt like just keeping that strand, statistics and probability in there, is the best thing to keep the strand going, even though, we don't technically use the word probability in the 8th grade competency anymore.
That makes sense. I understand it, I just don't agree with it. That's
Yeah,
fine.
it doesn't make sense to me.
So it's like saying that all the way through, everything is statistics and probability all the way through high school. And that would be the one unit probability would be taken out, the word probability.
They have to be able to apply probability skills from 7th grade that they learned to apply it to the 8th grade curriculum. So the strand makes sense to me. I
But
understand.
there's not a test in competency for it in 8th grade.
Correct. That's my understanding. Okay.
It's not to say that teachers aren't going to talk about statistics and probability in 8th grade. They're just not reporting out on a probability competency in 8th grade. Because that exact probability competency is in 7th grade. And so there's a unit in 7th grade that addresses statistics and probability. There's a unit in 8th grade that addresses statistics and probability. The 8th grade unit they're asking to take out that one particular competency, but it doesn't mean that they're not talking about or teaching the ideas of and the skills involved in statistics and probability. They're just not reporting out on the probability competency. I don't know if that adds clarity or makes it more muddled.
Clear as mud.
Does anybody have any other questions? Does someone want to make a motion to approve for first read the competency? Made by Kristen, do I have a second? Second by Kim. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
We should have done the same thing.
There's too many questions
Yeah,
on this.
I
I'm
was
okay
gonna
with it
say,
being
I was
first
gonna do
read.
it, but I think
I'm okay with it
we
being
need to
first
look
read.
at it.
I understand it.
Okay.
There's no measured assessment for that competency in
I know.
eighth grade.
I'll let you talk about the teacher cooking.
Yeah. Do you think you could put out an executive summary of that logic and that reasoning? So the board,
They're not
if
measuring
that's
that
the thing
person.
that before we do second read, they can look through that.
Okay, I can
Good call.
address something.
Thank you.
The third executive summary is again, it's in math, it's in middle school math, a competency removal. And what they're looking for is, there are two competencies that really kind of follow very similar wording. And you'll see that one is related specifically to rational numbers and one is related to real numbers. And so again, the two competencies in front of you are very, very similar. It's really just that ending piece. And their explanation to remove the one that ends with rational numbers and to keep the one that ends in real numbers is because rational numbers fit under the umbrella of real numbers. So if you're assessing and assessing or teaching and assessing kids' ability to work with real numbers, with rational numbers, then you're also asking kids to do that with real numbers. So it's really just it's almost a duplicate competency in a way, with just the wording of it. So what the teachers are looking for is to remove that first competency, but to keep the second one.
That makes sense.
Is it duplicative? Say somebody struggles with the rational number, they could end up with two different scores on both of those. Because you could struggle with one and not the other, so
I understand what you're saying. I think it's that how the teachers are looking to assess, it's not that disparate in the way that they're doing things. And so they feel as though that kids can still accurately teach and assess kids' ability to work with rational numbers using that idea of real numbers. I understand, like, your point is valid, but the teachers feel as though the overlap between the two is at this level.
so minimal that it's not gonna.
It's not going to, it's not gonna, kill a kid, if you will, it's not gonna tank a kid in one factor
Right.
and not the other.
Anybody have any other questions about this one? Okay, someone wanna make a motion to accept the first read of this?
So moved.
For competency removal of middle school math, rational numbers and real numbers.
Yes.
Motion was made by Kim, it was seconded by Mark. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstained. Alright,
Thank you.
thank you, sir.
Once again, I appreciate no, I don't think so. I mean, I can hang out, but once again, I appreciate the work of the teachers and Jen Poefek's work on all of this, so.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate all your work. Have a good holiday.
Thank you, you too.
Christmas.
Alright, next is the TTA tentative agreement ratification.
Awesome. So you guys have an executive summary in front of you there. We have a real good agreement in front of us to consider that targets what all the research tells us has the most impact on student achievement, and that is the adults that work directly with them. So teachers, related service providers, school nurses, those people that really do the work each and every day. The executive summary there has the dollar amounts for you. It has a lot of advantages that we see as the admin or the management team. It also has some advantages that we feel are a benefit to the employees that are doing that work. In the end, it's a 3-year agreement, and kind of the high-level pieces that we feel like it secures and keeps teaching expertise here in Timberlane. It's going to allow us to attract and secure positions that are really historically difficult to fill, and it continues to build partnerships between the admin team, the teachers, and the board, which I think is essential for growth. Lou Broad and Mark Pasquini are also here tonight as association president and vice president to speak to their experiences through the negotiations and speak directly to the board before you consider the agreement as a vote. Thank you, Lou and Mark, for joining.
I met a month ago with you and said that we had ratified this. It is a very good agreement. I think it will really serve this district towards teacher retention, towards recruiting of new teachers, recruiting of especially specialists. And we're looking forward to your ratification and then moving on towards a campaign towards approval by the voters.
Does anybody have any questions for Lou?
From the Department of Redundancy Department, again, we worked extraordinarily hard and there was a lot of goodwill. I know that you didn't get everything that you wanted. And I know that there was a lot of stress on our ends, knowing the financial situation that our towns are in. I'm excited by this. I'm pleased at where we landed. I think it's financially responsible, but also responsive to the needs of our district, our children, and our teachers, and acknowledging the sacrifices that some of our teaching professionals make in order to teach here. So I'm really enthusiastic about this agreement.
Yeah, it was a really good negotiation. I felt like the whole process was really smooth and we all worked really well together.
I said that before. It was just unbelievably how smooth it went.
Does anybody have any Kristen, you look like you have a question.
No, I'm having issues seeing because I don't know my glasses.
Shame, shame.
I'm scrolling and it's too big and then too small, but I was going to ask for anyone watching, can somebody hit some of the bullet points on the executive summary about the dollar figure and
Just give you some
years
glasses.
and what the, everything from below the blue highlight perhaps, maybe read that into.
So 3-year package, the total package is $6,176,202. Breaks down annually over the years. The first is about 2.4 million, the second is 1.8, and the last is 1.9. In terms of some key areas of the agreement, there's percentage increase for staff in year 1, there's a flat dollar increase in year 2, and a percentage increase in year 3, and that's really a double meaning there. That's to elevate the bottom, but also to continue to respect the percentage increase that people need over time. There's a flat dollar differential increase for positions that are historically difficult to fill. We're happy that that is there. There's a sunset to the retirement incentive, so that limits the district's financial liability over time. There's a per diem buyback of personal days. This is also a win-win about trying to have more days where there are more of the adult professionals in front of our kids, and less substitute teaching. There's language in there that gives us some more management of how we staff special education meetings and make sure we're meeting those obligations. There's language that kind of streamlines preparation duty time at the elementary school. It builds more consistency for kids. There's language that moves us toward exploring high school prep time and how to maybe use that in a way that is more commonly focused versus isolated and individually focused. And then there's also an avenue to expand the health insurance buyout that also has some fiscal savings potentially for the district over time.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions? And can I get a motion to
Make a motion.
make it Mark?
I was gonna say, it's gonna be Mark.
Say it, Mark.
Motion made to accept the TTA agreements dated, I guess, do we need the date here? As read, December 22nd. 21st.
We have a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Shauna. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstained. All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Next is Tam.
Mark, the video of Angelo, make sure that gets up.
Did you? Fran speaking to Tam. Hi, Fran. Good.
As you know, our technology staff requested to join the TN union, so they did. So we had to bargain for that particular group, about 8 people. So what you have before you is they've already ratified the attendance agreement on their end. We'd like you to ratify it as far as the board. We have the monetary values in 25 and 26. It's only gonna be for the last 2 years of the contract because we're already in the first year of the contract. Just kind of some highlights. So the hourly employees will receive a step plus 2% COLA for 24-25 and a step plus 1.5% COLA for 25-26. We now have 3 salaried employees, where before they were hourly. They're going to be receiving a 4% COLA and a 3.5% COLA. They don't get steps, which is why it's a little bit higher. there's some increase in personal days, a little bit of a higher accumulation in sick days, and they now have a UNH of rate, 3 courses per year, not to exceed the UNH rate per course, for tuition assistance. And we have set a fee for our wonderful senior technology support specialist who does a lot of our meetings and our activities at $225 for the recording that he does and streamlines for all of the activities that we're doing. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and so for FY 25, it's gonna be $27,211, and for FY 26, it's gonna be $25,891. Does anybody have any questions for Fran about TAM? Yep, Bree?
So just on the last comment, the 225 for startup, and it says graduation, is this also considered one of those events?
Does anybody else have any other questions? All right, can I get a motion to ratify the TAM negotiation, please? For technology staff?
I move to move that forward.
So moved. Motion made by Dawn.
I will second it.
Seconded by Shauna. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstained. Thank you, Fran.
Thanks, Fran.
All right.
Another way to skin the cat, Dawn.
So moved. Next is our school calendar. This is a first read. Sandy or Justin, did you want to
Sure,
speak
I'm
to
happy
any
to
of
speak
these?
to that. So I'm just trying to load it, I'm scrolling down. So you may remember from last year when we presented the calendar, there is an RSA that took effect a year ago that districts across the state that are sending schools to regional CTE centers, we have to minimize days in our annual calendar that don't align across those districts and conflicts in the district calendar. So last year we did this for the first time, but we met as a regional group. There were 5 districts that send our students to the same regional CTE centers. So we send our students to both Pinkerton and Salem. So we met as a group to align our calendar. So that's with Pelham, Wyndham, Salem, Pinkerton, and Timberlane. And so the calendar you see here reflects the professional development days and early release days that are consistent across all of those 5 districts. And so those were determinations we worked hard on last year. This year it was a little bit easier. We kind of carried a lot of that forward. So those dates align. I can tell you as well, looking at the beginning of the school year, we also, as a district, look to align our starting day of school with Pinkerton and Wyndham and I believe Salem. So that start date of a Wednesday is consistent with those districts as well. And so we're bringing this to you. We did consult. I met with Mr. Broad to look at this calendar. We looked at a couple different options regarding the start of the school year, the semester break and where that fell, and then the end of the school year. We had a couple options. He met with his executive board, and this is the version we settled on. And I think just consistently across the board, we feel pretty good about the calendar. You know, it's a reasonable start date. We're giving, if you look at this, our families and staff are coming back a little bit later in August than we have in the past, but we're still able to finish by June 17th is our projected last day. So bringing this to you, and this does reflect that alignment, so.
Kristen.
Sandy already knows this, she knows what I'm gonna say, I don't like it. And the reason I say that, I mean, you have so many kids that are already back in August with sports, with band, with everything else, and they're already back and they're here and they're doing stuff. And you're basically talking about bringing anyone else back for 2 days, a Wednesday and a Thursday before. To me, it's either the 4 days or nothing. I mean, that's kind of cruddy. Like people that want to be on vacation that don't have to be back, you're saying you got to come back for 2 days of school. When we did it for the 4 days, I think people got used to it and they accepted it because the kids were kind of getting in relatively full week, and it was a nice transition that way. So I'm not crazy about the starting on a Wednesday, and I'm also not crazy about the ending on the 17th on a Tuesday. Reason being, as I stated to you before, my concerns become, I know we're counting hours, but it becomes that window of how graduation has to be, 5 days from when we our last day of school. So basically, if we wanna do graduation on a Saturday, you're talking graduation's now gonna be on the 14th.
So we talked about that, a couple of things, just the start of the school day on a Wednesday, something that came, was brought up as advantageous with our teachers. Is that especially at the secondary level where you're on a block schedule or the A/B day rotation. For unified arts at the middle school, they're still on the rotation. At the high school, they're on the block schedule. That gives you a nice transition into the school year where all students get a chance to see, and teachers, all of their students one day to start the day. You can launch your year, set expectations, hand out syllabi and things of that nature. It's sort of a soft start to the school year to start developing relationships. So that 2-day start was actually something that they felt was advantageous for
And as a
kids.
parent, hearing that, I would say I'm not gonna send my kid to school those 2 days. Because it's nothing, you're just gonna get your syllabus and hang out with your teacher, and I'd rather be up in the mountains or at the lakefront.
Well, and
extra
it's not
week than
implying
come
they're
back
not
for
doing
2
anything
days.
beyond that. But that's fundamentally how you launch a school year regardless, whether it's in a 4-day week or a 2-day week. Other pieces on the tail end of that, I can tell you that Pinkerton right now, their calendar that was approved, their graduation date is the weekend. I think theirs is actually the 6th on their approved calendar. So we are looking into confirm, we believe that we can still maintain graduation on the 7th. So we're looking in when we calculate by hours, we think that we can still work that in.
But say there's something that then bumps us out 2 or 3 days.
We can still calculate hours and we would still be okay.
Armand, from a student perspective, what do you think of this calendar?
When looking at it, I do like the way of easing in, but it's different for everybody. But for me, yeah, like the easing into it is a little bit more beneficial because then you get established in your classroom environments. And all that. So yeah.
You're a senior next year as well, aren't you?
Yeah.
So what do you think about as far as for the graduation piece towards the end? Are you worried about anything with this calendar or anything from what you just now see?
Yeah, looking at it, I mean, it looks pretty good. I don't really have any major concerns, but yeah.
Can I add one other comment that I should have raised originally but did not? So the way this calendar breaks down, with the 2-day start at the beginning as opposed to the 4-day, the semester break and looking at this. And so, right, semester is the end of marking periods, but at the same time, from a high school perspective, we have 4 days of midterm exams for high school students. So they have 2 exams that run every day for 4 consecutive days. The way this calendar is set up with the start date, that gives us a clean end to the first semester on Friday, the 24th of January. So on that week of Civil Rights Day, Martin Luther King Day, that 4-day week is the 4-day exam week for the high school students. Middle school is also on the 4 quarters and 2 semesters for the year. So grades would close on that Friday, the 24th. There's a 3-day weekend from a student and family perspective because there's a professional development day, which is one of those dates that we aligned with the other districts on that Monday. So for students and families at the close of that semester and for teachers who are closing out grades, and in some cases at the high school level, launching new semester long courses, there's that clean kind of break on a Friday. When we had originally, we looked at a draft that was a 4-day week in August, so backing up that start date to that Monday. Where that fell, obviously, if you back it up 2 days, it's kind of, we should not be basing all of our decisions on the midterm schedule of the high school. However, it does have a fairly large impact for both staff and students as they're planning for those and things like that. So that was something that we discussed as well with our teachers, with the teachers union, so.
Yeah, Sean?
Also noticing that for the holiday break in December into January. So it's looking like the kids would have to come back on the 2nd and the 3rd, which would be a Thursday and a Friday. Can you talk me through that? Because as a parent, I don't like that either.
Yeah, it's a little.
But I'm just interested to hear your perspective.
You want them to go back earlier as a parent? Is that?
No, but I'm from a break perspective, although I think it might have something to do with the midterm schedule or something like that, but I know, I feel like in the past, haven't we?
It's all about where the Christmas day falls.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I know it's a leap year and I know.
Yep.
So it's bumping things out and things, but I was just curious as to if
That
they
was
were to get the
discussed.
first 2
Yeah,
weeks, if
that
they
was
were to get 2 full weeks,
Yep,
where does
that
that
was
put us?
discussed when we met as a regional, right, a group of districts. And it was something that a couple other districts contemplated. We chose, looking at this, all of the districts that we met with, they are bringing their students back on the second. If we decided to count those 2 as additional vacation days, those would be 2 conflicts. I think we'd still be under the threshold. We're allowed to have 10 conflicts on the calendar. So it's an option. That would bump us back an additional 2 days in June.
It goes back to that soft thing, like you go ease yourself back in on that Thursday and Friday, and then you jump back in.
Done.
We had some conversation about having more snow days that were non-school days. I'm wondering what the number that we could have without jeopardizing problems at the end of the
I know it's at least 5. Yep, I can bring that back for the second read if you'd like me to.
That'd be good.
I did those calculations a couple of years ago during COVID, if you remember, the board voted to go to hours and we actually shaved off quite a few calendar days that year, back in 2020.
Jack?
I think to Shauna's point, you make them come back on Thursday and Fridays, people going away on ski vacations, going away on vacations. I just wonder how well attended those 2 days would be under that set of circumstances and how advantageous it is to pull everyone in if you're only gonna have 50% attendance. I don't know that.
Start the year too potentially.
It's gonna happen
That's-
on
it's
both
the same
ends. That's when
scenario,
you said that, I was
Yeah.
like, that's exactly what I was thinking.
You can't do it
Yep.
in one spot and not the other. You either do it in both places or you don't do it in both places.
I would just point out as well, there are other areas where we sometimes have 2-day weeks, so Thanksgiving traditionally is a 2-day week, where Wednesday we shut down and the holidays on the tail end of that. So hearing where you're coming from, completely understand, but just pointing out that that is another place in the calendar where we traditionally run a 2-day week.
Well, this is only the first read of this of the schedule, so if you could definitely bring us the data
Happy
for the
to do
snow
that.
days, for sure. Yeah.
And perhaps a historic over the last several years, how many snow days or blizzard bag days that now will be snow days? Because I'm afraid with the weather, to Dawn's point, we have a couple ice storms that are in the middle and we don't do blizzard bag and there's snow days and that could push out graduation even further.
I mean, they're
Gonna jinx us.
You don't
Knock
wanna
on wood.
start jeopardizing or sacrificing professional development days to accommodate for you end up with options that you don't like to solve a problem if you get to April and you're in trouble.
Right, but to Sandy's point too, a lot of other districts that we're collaboration with this is the schedule that they've adopted too, so it's not like we're the only one doing this.
But it's good to know where the thinking comes from, so I'll make a motion to accept the 2024-2025 school calendar for our first read.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Kim, any other discussion?
I just had one question.
Yeah.
It's more for me, actually. So it just seems that like extended Labor Day and Wednesday of Thanksgiving off, I guess that's just the movement that's occurred over the years now, like, cause like that was never a thing. You went to school on Wednesday and Thanksgiving was Thursday, you're off Friday. Now we got Labor Day, extended Labor Day, we're off Monday and Friday. Like it's just, that's just kind of the
That's
the direction we're in, right, I guess, as far as it feels
We
soft.
used to start after Labor Day.
That's what I'm saying.
And then when we went to before Labor Day, the compromise was to give the extended
4-day weekend.
4-day weekend so that people could still go and enjoy that weekend.
But bust it up in the middle. I agree with you, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, but that's, I know, but that's kind of how it kind of came about was if we're gonna start early, and the 4 days was kind of your transition in, then the kids kind of got 4 off, it was kind of 2 4-day weeks in a row and then school kind of was flooded.
Yeah, and I would, as I usually do, I would defer to the experts in this case, students. You would tell me better than what's better from in a learning environment, teachers. I'm just still trying to swallow this as like, how much time off do you need? And like,
Hold on, it's Bree and then Dawn.
Can I put Lou Broad on the spot?
Sure.
Ask a teacher's perspective, because to me it looks like it is a start for teachers to come in Monday, Tuesday to get ready and prepared for the entire school year until they see their students come in Wednesday, Thursday. So how do you utilize that time and how do you feel about this
So the
calendar?
Monday and Tuesday would be the PD days.
In this calendar,
Monday
yes.
night would be the open houses. So the previous week would be flex days, people coming in for. One consideration was pushing that back because we know the high school is gonna be shut down and not accessible. We don't know when that's gonna open up. The further along, the better chance teachers have to come into the building. Typically, teachers the week or 2 weeks before like to do their flex days. They come in and they prep their rooms and so forth. We don't know about building access. Pushing that back might help that. And the second consideration was the open houses too. The open house would be that Monday under this current schedule as opposed to the previous week. Students would come in on Thursday for the open house of the previous week.
Thank you.
Yeah, my only, concerns are from teachers' perspective also is the later you get into June, the more difficult it is to hold the kids.
I've never experienced.
Keep them motivated. So there's a give to get, you wanna try to get out by mid-June, and your seniors, are looking to get out.
Itching to go.
One week ahead of that,
wanna go in.
so.
Check out in April.
We have had a year when we went all the way to
July.
end of June. And that was brutal, so, and not because people don't like their job, but because the job changes after you've already achieved all the academic pieces you have, you met all your deadlines, and now you're just,
There.
holding kids. Or kids don't show up or whatever.
Less productive educational time.
Yes.
So I think the challenge has always been to try to, find the middle ground in terms of a start date, finish date.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on this? Alright, all those in favor? Opposed? And abstained. One abstention. Alright, thanks, Luke. Next, we have some policies. Maybe. Alright, these are both for first read slash adoption. Are we adopting these?
Yeah, this was a big one. Just first read.
Oh, okay. The two policies, first policy is JKAA, which is the use of restraints and seclusions. Change in recommendation, language reflects the RSA 126-U to prohibit the use of seclusion as a form of punishment or discipline on children in schools and treatment facilities, and further refines the previous definition of seclusion. The next policy is JLCA, physical examinations. There's language which allows flexibility in addressing scheduling difficulties with providers. Justin, did you want to speak to any of these at all?
Nothing specific to share, no.
Yep, Bree.
I just wanna say from a medical point of view, who also deal with restraints, chemical and people in dangerous situations, this is pretty standard to go kind of very in-depth, especially when we're talking about restraints and people's welfare and being. So I actually did read this pretty in-depth and it is long and brutal, but I think it's very necessary.
This policy was always also cleared by our special education department to make sure that it didn't hold their hands by anything as well. Does anybody have any other questions about these two policies? Could I get a motion to adopt these for first read?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jack. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstained? Okay. So the default budget is the next item. From what I'm understanding, what we've talked about during the CIP and the phase 2 of the lease, that the budget committee has not approved the proposed budget, is that correct? So if they are, I believe talks, and Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is also just as well, that they are gonna have, there's been discussion about reducing that budget by at least $2 million. At that point, we would, like what Kim and Brian had stated, there would be some changes if that got adopted within the default budget. Mark, did you wanna speak about the budget committee at all, or?
I was
anything?
not there for that
Okay.
original meeting. The last meeting we had with some members of the school board. We will be revisiting, I believe, that 2 million was amended down to 500,000. Yes?
No. Two
$2.5
separate things.
million of recommendations based on what the budget committee had charged us to do. They settled at about $2 million of that.
500,000 was at the suggested the CIP. So they've not, their next meeting is December 28th, is that
The
correct?
28th, yep.
And is that when they're planning on voting?
That is their intention. It's their last scheduled meeting right now, so that is their goal to get to that endpoint. And it sounds like after hearing tonight is that we will check it back in with Maria and maybe see where that stands, and then bring a default budget to the next school board meeting as well.
So I know it says action item, but hearing everything that's happened in this meeting, I believe we need to wait until we get further information and clarification. Does anybody have any questions though about the default budget at this time, other than what we talked about? Kristen? Are you, do you have a question or are you just squinting?
Both, but I'm just, I mean, until there's final action, it's, you know. Yeah, there's nothing to talk about right now.
We already.
I agree with what Brian and Kimball said, I mean,
Yes.
it needs to be we need to make sure it follows all of those parameters, because we don't wanna be spending time in court again. Been there, done that.
Yeah, Mark.
Justin, would you be able to reach out in collaboration with Maria and then get back to FinCom what the findings are as soon as you can, so that we can digest it prior to the 28th?
Findings of?
Regarding the difference between the default and
The
proposed budget.
with the salary lines, et cetera.
Yes, yeah, I heard two questions tonight. One is about the statutory default, whether there are contractual obligations or not that need to continue, and also the differences of anything that's categorized as a one-time expense.
Correct.
Okay, we'll clarify those two pieces.
Don.
I heard just a little, something, I'm not sure how it fit in, but there's concern about not moving forward aggressively with the use of our money for facilities improvements, and I hate to see progress we're making in managing our money to move forward on all these things that are infrastructure pieces. Some of it is lease money, but it's not all lease money. I'm just, we have put those things on, we sacrificed a lot of that consistently over the years, and I just, feel like we need to, try to move the cheese on that. We have to improve our facilities.
I agree with Dawn, and that's what I was alluding to as well, that we're kind of at a point where we got the lease and we're moving forward with some projects, and now we're gonna cut in other areas, so we're not gonna be able to continue with all the other projects, and we're just gonna keep.
It compounds.
It's just, yeah, and I
It compounds over
appreciate the
time.
effort of the budget committee, and I completely get where they're going, and I'd love to see the budget be able to be reduced, but at what cost? Because now we're gonna take other projects, put them beside, and then there's gonna be a board sitting here in 10 years going, why didn't they do all of this stuff? Well, this is why, and if we're not able to do the projects that need to be done to keep our school moving forward, it's just not a good cycle.
Jack and then Mark.
So it's always the easiest thing to point to if you wanna reduce the budget. You need to cut out a couple of projects. And that's been going on for a real long time, right? So one, you incur an increase in that, and what kind of goes back to the concept of I hope we have things budget numbers and put out to bid because last year we had some capital left over that we could have moved forward on some projects. And hopefully this year we have bids in place, like say the cabinets, for instance, that if there are monies left over, we can move forward on some of those things. Because we just gotta keep chipping away, and as painful as it is, and as much as I appreciate the impact to the community, it will only cost us more down the road, so let's have all our ducks in a row to move forward as expeditiously as we can. And to the budget committee, I have been in years where that capital line was zeroed out and nothing was done. And then, there were years that money was left on in that capital line. And that's how we got to where we are today, so let's not make the same mistake twice.
See, it was your fault. Or it was your board, no.
Circling back a little bit to one of the earlier questions for clarification with the lease money, whether the lease monies have to be utilized through EEI and what those strictures are, that would be a valuable piece of information for BudCom to have prior to the 28th, because some of these projects do overlap.
So it could be a lease project instead of a CIP project, that would be better.
Exactly.
3 things.
So we will table the default budget until next time so that we can get more information on it from the budget committee. Next thing is our draft warrant articles. This is presentation 5. When do we have to vote? When's the deadline to vote on all the warrant articles?
I believe it's the
January 18th. Okay.
not after.
19th is too
Before,
far,
but not
the
after.
17th is too early. It's the
Because
18th.
there's language added to Article 8.
When's our next meeting?
And Article 10.
Yeah, when. So, I mean.
So just walking everyone through the process, I mean, we got 2 January meetings. If BudCom works through what they need to work through on the 28th, these warrants could potentially be set to vote on that first week we get back in January. If they're not, or if they can't be, they will go on the 18th, and that still gives us time to kind of meet all the legal requirements that we need to for posting and those type of pieces. We would prefer not to wait to the 18th in terms of timing, and we would like to aim for the 4th. But as a fail-safe, we do have January 18th as the last date you could consider moving forward with these pieces.
Right, so we're hoping to maybe be able to vote on these the first meeting in January, if not no later than this last meeting in January, which is the 18th.
And we'll be able to add
Numbers to
numbers to from the contracts that were ratified tonight.
Correct.
Great, are in there.
Including, we have language now drafted by the legal counsel for the TAM addition as well. Right now you just see, I think, dollar figures in there. We have the language to insert in there as well in terms
Good
of.
job, it's in there.
Oh, it's in there already?
Yes, it is.
Jeez.
She's on there.
That's why I said the dollar amounts and not the. Thank you, Kelly.
Kristen, did you have a question or?
No, I'm just.
You really need your glasses because you keep squinting. I think you're about to say something.
You know what it is too, and I'm trying to get the screen to expand and then it overexpands, so then I gotta pinch it, then it goes way too small.
It's very
And it's just not at the, it won't stay at the right.
That's what Apple is for.
Does anybody have any questions about the current warrant articles that we have?
No.
Okay, alright. Moving on, administrators report.
Don, I know you arrived a little bit after we started. I wanted to connect with you before, but at BudCom, you presented, I think, a really touching tribute to Bill Mealy. And I also wanted to ask you to do that this evening. There's some culminating activities happening tomorrow. And I think your voice just kind of sheds light on the power of individuals and their impact on the community. So if we could put you on the spot, I'd like to do that.
We celebrated the life of Bill Mealy at his wake over the weekend, and Bill Mealy was a lifetime servant of this community. Well, not lifetime, but certainly his professional life. He was a driver ed teacher, social studies teacher, a soccer coach. He was an assistant principal, a principal. He was a curriculum director for the district, became a superintendent of schools for many years. Certainly somebody who lived the educational life with integrity. He was a role model. He had an outgoing personality that was magnetic. His family was embedded in the district. His son became an administrator after teaching and being a part of our high school. His kids were very involved in athletics and music, and just a charmed life in many ways. And so to not mention him here, I guess, would have been a mistake. And to not thank him, you know, for all that he did for us. We talked a little bit about Mealy's Meals, which, you know, is right now, you know, performing good things for the district, named after him. It was created by him, run by him for many years. Everybody wanted to be involved in, you know, wrapping up gifts or bagging up food and delivering it to families that were having a hard time. That goes on to this day. Hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years, donated year-round to help families in need. You know, this says everything about Bill. So we did a moment of silence for him in an earlier meeting. I'd like to take 10 seconds to do that now. Thank you.
Thank you. So to piggyback on that, and I know Armand spoke about this, but our Mealy's Meals program is deeply rooted in our community, and tomorrow our high school has the culminating events going on. So tomorrow afternoon there are opportunities for students to buy a ticket to attend a performance of the Milkmen. They can go to a basketball game in the CAF, or in the gym rather, or go to the CAF, which is they do not have to purchase anything, they can go, but there are opportunities for them to engage in some games and other activities. So it's a real celebration that helps to raise additional funds that then goes to this program, which benefits our community. So that'll be happening tomorrow. If you are around and want to check it out, I'm sure the high school would be thrilled to see you there. I'm excited to go to some of these and kind of wander around and get to see a Milkman performance, which often conflicts with board meetings. So I'm going to go check that out for a little bit tomorrow. Also just want to kind of continue bringing to you some great things that are happening in our schools that we get to experience during the day. And so as I think you're aware, one of our main goals and the strategic plan is around community engagement. And you've talked about it here of we become kind of a hub of the community, reaching out to parents and families. And so yesterday we had a leadership team meeting at the middle school. We were able to get in there and visit some classrooms. And then as a group, we were invited to be guest judges, as were some of our parents, in a 7th grade family and consumer science class, where the students were working in groups to using what they had learned around nutrition and the food pyramid. They planned recipes for smoothies and they prepared them. We were invited in to be guest judges, and there were a lot of parents, 7th grade parents were invited, and they came in as well. So that was one great thing. We then walked down the hallway to the cafeteria, and our high school guitar orchestra that was in class, they held their class rather than having a teaching moment. They performed outside of the middle school cafeteria for our middle school students as they were entering their lunch periods for the day. So it was a really great chance to see how they were connecting, right, high school and middle school students. And then again today, this morning, I think you heard about 8th grade. Traditionally, they read a Christmas carol, go to attend the performance, which they did yesterday. And then this morning they hosted a Victorian tea. And so every team in the 8th grade was in the CAF annex. They had a traditional tea, they did some readings, one of the teams had a debate, and they had over 120, I believe is the latest I heard, parents come in that building this morning to participate with their students in this opportunity. So to see their learning in action and just be part of our greater community. So I just wanted to highlight some of those great community opportunities that are happening in that building and many others across the district. And also thank, the middle school for hosting us. I think our leadership team had a great day yesterday, so.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Just to give the board kind of an update where we are with the RFP process for 2 pieces. We still have 2 active RFPs out. One is for the pond dredging and expansion. The other is for the irrigation upgrades. Both of those close on January 16th.
Okay.
On December 13th, Carl and his team kind of did a walkthrough with organizations for both of those RFPs. For the irrigation upgrade, Corbett Irrigation was here for the walkthrough. They're an organization that has done some work with us in the last RFP and also wrote some specs. Hampstead Area Water Service Company was also here. They're a division of Lewis Builders. They were really clear with us through the walkthrough that they're not irrigation experts, so they've done some commercial stuff with golf courses. So those are the two organizations that did the walkthrough there. On the pond dredging expansion side, there were a few more companies with the walkthrough, one of them being Busby Construction, second being WB Davis Excavation, third is American Excavation, and the fourth was Jamco Excavations. And again, all with different kind of abilities and work with and history with the district, but they did their walkthroughs there. After the 16th, we'll be bringing a recommendation back to the board about which direction we want to go for either one of those. We've been talking a lot about budget tonight and kind of dates and cycles. So I wanted to share with the board, the full board, but also to share with the community that we're looking to strategically put together some infographic visual aids for folks that will be electronic and media driven. We're going to look to distribute those throughout the communities beginning in the third week in January, all the way through to the vote in March. And really about providing information about what people can see in the budget and what they can see on some of the more primary and relevant warrant articles. So really for people to understand what's in front of them and kind of what's at stake for their participation for voting in March. And just some key dates coming up. January 11th is the public hearing. That's when we will present, or VudCon will present the budget to the community. So that's the community's first time to hear it in its full capacity, all of it. February 8th is our deliberative. It's that awesome time for the community to come together and have that discussion and debate with one another about what they want to see. And then we certainly invite everybody to come out and vote on March 12th, 2024.
Do we have a snow day for deliberative?
It's the next day, isn't it?
Is it the next day?
I'll have to look at the calendar, see what
It
it
is,
is.
okay,
next
so,
day.
yeah,
I
so.
thought I read it somewhere.
Yeah, so deliberative is the 8th of February, and then the snow day is gonna be the 9th.
That's all for us.
Okay, thank you. Personnel report, it looks, Fran, it looks like we don't have any nominations or resignations, so, okay. Does anybody have any questions about the vacancy report? Yeah, Bree.
I was just wondering if we could discuss acting upon the redistribution of the financial analyst position.
What do you wanna discuss?
Repurposing it.
Toward
Probably teachers coming in, or, cause I know that we have lowered the elementary level class sizes, and that may influx any classrooms or
So adding a teaching
teachers.
position, you're suggesting.
Yes, that would be my suggestion. Do you
Didn't,
have any?
didn't Maria state that she was actively at the?
Yes, we've put that on hold, just in terms of where the landscape is right now. What I think we would like an opportunity to do is to think as a leadership team and bring back either a recommendation or some cost things that we would see that would happen if the board determined to repurpose that, but also maybe some of the benefits we would see on the other side of that if the repurposing took place.
So is that gonna be presented next?
We can do that.
Good question. Does anybody else have any other questions about the vacancy report? Bree, go on.
Sorry. So cutting on my mom for a second, I apologize. My son's at Danville Elementary, and I just became aware that there's no longer a technology teacher there. They have specials each day, technology being one of them, and he said he's been going to the library. And I was just never informed that we didn't have a technology specialist there anymore. I don't see a position posted, so I was just wondering, is there a plan to come back? Are parents usually notified about something like that?
It's a fundamental shifting in how technology as a UA is shifting from a UA model to a push and delivery.
Sorry, UA.
Unified Arts. So and is consistent with the expectations at the state level of what technology education looks like at the elementary level. So most districts at this point have moved beyond weekly technology lessons because technology, when it began, it's everywhere and is designed to be integrated into instruction. And so our library media specialists are also kind of we're shifting their role as well to do more direct instruction and to shift them into a unified arts model in the rotation. And so it's actually a fundamental kind of shift into how we're doing that. And it's been planned for the past couple of years.
So what I'm hearing is that they are getting technology in all aspects.
Yes.
And it doesn't need to be a one-time weekly
Absolutely, yes.
section.
That's accurate. Great way of phrasing it.
What happened to that teacher? Was that teacher moved into a different role?
Teacher is still there. Yeah, the teacher is still there.
That's what I mean.
We're not
like,
down a
okay.
teacher. So,
Right.
yes.
That, again, I'm getting information from a 7-year-old, so.
Absolutely. Yes.
Good for you to verify it.
So would that have moved into maybe a interventionist or?
No, the position is still there and it's operating in a different manner. So as opposed to students leaving their class and attending a technology class once a week by grade level, that time is now shifting toward library media as a unified arts. And they're getting technology through a push-in model where the technology teacher is working collaboratively with teachers and they're getting technology in a different way.
Okay, so that teacher's still.
It is not a vacant position.
Thank you.
Does that answer
Yeah.
your question?
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
there
you.
go. Sorry.
No, that's-
I could have just said that first.
No, I like it.
Any other questions about the vacancy report?
So I'm done.
Oh, sure. All right, thank you, Fran. Next, committee reports, we'll start with Paul.
I have nothing to report, we pretty much covered the CIP and construction tonight, so I'm good.
Strategic met today and I'll have my update next meeting at the top of the month.
Sweet. Kim?
Curriculum and assessment, instead of the first Tuesday of January, we're meeting the second Tuesday of January. So January 9th.
FunCom had a very brief combined meeting with some members of the school board. We discussed some of the hanging chads that will be tightened up on December 28th.
Nice analogy.
Yeah.
Shauna?
Next policy meeting is January 4th and then January 10th is wellness committee. You can be busy that week.
Safety committee, we met, and it was very productive, some good things coming down the way. And then me and Miss Shauna got to go to the Victorian tea today at the middle school, and it was really great to see and get to sample the tea. And that, you know, the kids have been working on Christmas Carol, that text since I believe Thanksgiving. And at that age, it's a difficult text to read sometimes because of the old language that's in it and everything. And it was just nice to mingle with the students and parents and some of them that were just like, they really liked the theater part and it was kind of cool to see them make certain connections, so it was really great, so.
Yes,
Dawn?
very well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of recent events that really struck me as indicative of great things that are going on. One was at the middle school, it was a concert at the PAC. It was a 6th grade concert that involved singing, orchestra, band. They had 75% of the 6th graders performing.
Nice.
75% of the 6th grade class performed. They had a boys chorus and a girls chorus. The boys chorus had about 60, 70 kids in it. The girls was also, immense. It was a great time. It was just amazing. You could not get a parking spot. It's a lot of people, that have grandma and dad there, and that music program is attacking this, challenge of rebuilding, and that was amazing. It was just amazing. The kids were great, and it was fun. It was almost like the instructors were performing. High school kids were helping. It was a very, very good showcase of what we're all about. And then last night we had alumni from since 1971 come back to watch a wrestling match and get together and be recognized for having been part of the wrestling program over the years. And some people, significant members of the program weren't there, Mark, I don't know why.
I never got an invite, man.
Look, you've got to
I didn't get an invite to the tea or the
He was trying to get a singlet on, Don, it wasn't pretty, he stayed home.
I did it, my wife wanted me to stay home, so there you go.
It's not Facebook present or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
But anyway, a couple of things I just thought were really nice touches to highlight.
Great.
Really fast, that just speaks volumes, the community getting involved and coming back to Timberlane. To have 75% of the sixth graders, these are COVID kids. These are kids that did not get music in the introduction necessarily that they normally would have in their elementary schools. Yet, 75% penetration, getting kids into voluntarily training in the musical arts, that's absolutely amazing.
I don't wanna dull the allure of that, but my son was a participant of this, but he's in the developing voices class. He is not in chorus, but it is one of the academic requirements to attend a performance, and he was super nervous, but also felt those soft skills of feeling successful. He got up on a stage, he was brave, he could sing, he remembered the words, he didn't panic, he didn't fall. So the combination of those kids that make the choice to do music and joining those kids that aren't so sure about it and watching that collaboration happen on stage also speaks volumes to the music program too. My understanding is that happens for the girls developing voices too, right? Help me, right? So, outstanding.
Jack?
Yeah, I won't beat up much more on the construction meeting, other than to say, I thought it was very productive, we got a lot done. Renovations tend to evolve over time, so I would just ask the residents in the community to be patient as this evolves, and it's turning into something I think everybody wants. I think I see the board's focus on moving the facilities forward in a expedited kind of way, so I appreciate the support of the board. Welcome Paul onto the committee, he was very, very crucial part of that meeting, right, Paul? And then finally,
He's like, sure.
I'd like to say, from me and my family, to the board, to the administration, to the teachers, to the residents, and especially the children, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, right? We're all lucky to be where we are, doing what we do, and to be part of this community, so we're all fortunate, so I'm grateful, thank you.
Kristen?
Facilities meeting, Carl, the administrators, talked about all the day-to-day, week-to-week and long-term projects that are coming up. So, I mean, beneficial as always to have all the administrators' input and Carl's input. Want to thank Don for his nice words about Bill Mealy. I know how important Bill was to Don and they were a great team. So I'm sure those words are beyond heartfelt and I'm sure very difficult for Don. Bill was also my driver's ed teacher, so if anyone has any complaints, sorry.
You use your turn signal coming in.
No, it's kind of funny, I think one of the last things that Bill did at this district was the after prom party. And I was there with my son and chaperoning it with Don and Bill and he was a great guy and definitely not only for the district but for the town and for whatnot. Just one of those people that if you had the pleasure of knowing him, you were a lucky person. So he will definitely be missed. So my last thing is again about community and stage fright and getting up and doing things beyond your boundaries and just kind of, you know, how lucky we are to have people that are willing to be involved in things and go out of their way and do stuff. So I would like to present a little holiday.
Now, please don't have
Yeah, a little more volume on this, Justin, so we can make sure.
it could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of them all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes,
Thanks,
he
Steve.
stood there, hating the news, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town, for he knew every move down and who lived beneath, was busy now, hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming. I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for their toys. And then, oh, the noise. Oh, the noise. Noise, noise, noise. That's one thing he hated. The noise, 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 noise. Then the Who's, young and old, would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast and they'd feast. And they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Who's would start singing. They sing and they sing, and they sing, 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 sing.
I'm sorry, Dean, I missed the beginning, could you rewind?
So I just wanted to thank Justin and congratulate our band for another great performance and Justin for participating in that event. It's a great event and thank you for going outside of your comfort zone
You're welcome for
and doing
recognizing
that.
that.
One
That's
more
all I
thing,
have.
did I hear that Mr. D came back and conducted a song at one of the concerts?
I think the Merrimack Valley, I could be wrong, I wish Mr. Schweiss was here, but it was not this concert, it was the following weekend, which I believe is the community, could have been community band.
Community band?
It could have been community band.
That's a
yes.
huge deal,
It
that's
is,
just to have him in that building conducting, I think that's something we should probably do.
You did a very good job.
And well done,
Yes.
Justin.
Animation
Very
was
well done.
great. Kristen, do you have anything else?
No, that was
You
it.
can't top that.
No,
Like
that was pretty good.
I couldn't, you can't top that. The book's been sitting on his desk for a long, or his shelf, whatever you call it, in his office, so for a long time, and
It's plant space.
I'm like, you just, yep. You deserve, but
Talk to
you,
the kids. I talk to the kids that sometimes you just need to perform, because that's the first time I've read that story.
No way.
Yes.
and that's the thing. And you were always pointing out the family shares, the staff shares, and everyone needed to see you in action, because I think that was just amazing, so,
Thank you.
thank you.
Well done.
Yes. Yes. Very well done.
It will become an annual tradition, I think.
Justin's like, no.
I'd like to make a motion.
Just as long as he doesn't sing, we're all. Sorry.
Christmas pajamas tonight.
Does anybody have any other business at this time?
No, that was enough.
Okay, I do have one announcement. The school board actually has one announcement. Chris Kellen has announced his decision to leave the district at the end of the 2023-2024 school year. Chris will not return to his position as superintendent, which permits the school board to begin the process of immediately hiring a new superintendent. Chris wishes to express his gratitude and appreciation for the opportunity to work in the district. During this time, Sandy and Justin will continue their roles as interim superintendent, as assistant superintendent to at least minimum the end of the 2023-2024 school year. Board has every confidence that you guys will continue to lead this district as you have. You guys have done a great job stepping up during this time, and we look forward to continuing down this path. If there's no other business, well, we don't have any other delegates or individuals, do we?
No, we don't.
Okay, cool. And to express what Jack had stated, everybody have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year. And at this time, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 9:25. We don't have a non-public or anything, so we are done.
Happy New Year.
Bye, everybody.